Cantorum Basiliensis, die Mitveranstalter. Und bevor ich das vergesse, ich danke an dieser Stelle schon mal der Meyer-Sacher-Stiftung, die das Ganze finanziell für uns ermöglicht. Die Schule macht extrem viel. Das meiste machen wir, keine Ahnung, wie wir finanzieren es nicht, wir tun es einfach. Aber gewisse Sachen muss man einfach mit Geld finanzieren und das normale Schulbudget ermöglicht das in der Regel nicht. Und dann sind wir sehr dankbar über diese Stiftung, die diese Extras ermöglicht. Und in diesem Fall war es besonders glücklich. Die Schola Cantorum Basiliensis, ich muss die hier nicht vorstellen, hat ja eine sehr aktive Forschungsabteilung, sehr aktiv in verschiedenen Sachen, in Forschungsprojekten, in Publikationen, in Symposien. Und das große jährliche Symposien, was wir normalerweise immer machen, haben wir gesagt, 2024 ziehen wir um. Wir machen kein Symposion, das ist zu viel Arbeit. Das war ein doppelter Fehler. Erstens ziehen wir nicht in diesem Jahr um, sondern im nächsten Jahr. Und zweitens, viele kleine Veranstaltungen machen genauso viel Arbeit wie eine große Veranstaltung. Also Lesson learned, man kann tun, was man will, es bedeutet Arbeit. In diesem Fall aber eine Arbeit, die wir sehr gerne investiert haben. Vor allen Dingen war das ja Johannes Menke und Jean-Christophe, die die Arbeit übernommen haben. Über den Background müssen wir nicht reden. Das heißt, ich begrüße hiermit herzlich, nachdem der gestrige Tag in Freiburg schon sehr gelungen war. Ich jedenfalls habe sehr davon profitiert, in einer sehr angenehmen Atmosphäre. Genau der Mix von Forschung, theoretischer Input, Reflexion und praktischem Umsetzen, wo ich mir denke, das ist das, wofür wir hier eigentlich stehen und was uns auch unterscheidet von irgendwelchen langweiligen musikwissenschaftlichen Veranstaltungen. Wir haben gestern schon gesehen, wir haben verschiedene Sprachen. Es kann sowohl Französisch wie Englisch wie Deutsch und Hände und Füße verwendet werden, haben wir gestern gemerkt, das werden wir wieder tun. Ich weiß nicht, ob ich den ersten Referenten ansagen soll oder machst du das? Macht Johannes. Das wird nämlich auf Englisch vermutlich sein. Und with this I close my introduction and welcome to this second day of the study days on François Couperin.
Ja, guten Morgen auch von meiner Seite aus. Ich glaube, wir sind alle noch ganz inspiriert vom gestrigen Tag und freuen uns jetzt weiterzumachen mit dieser schönen Verbindung von Forschung und künstlerischer Praxis und auch Pädagogik natürlich. Und jetzt ist es mir eine ganz besondere Freude, Denis Herlin begrüßen zu können, der aus Paris angereist ist. Ich nehme an, die meisten von Ihnen kennen zumindest den Namen Denis Herlin. Also jeder, der sich mit Couperin beschäftigt, kommt nicht um ihn herum. Er ist Direktor de Recherche am IREMUS, wir sehen das hier schon. Das ist ein Rechercheinstitut, beheimatet an der Bibliothèque Nationale. Und er hat sich unter zahlreichen Editionen, kann ich jetzt nur ein paar herausgreifen, er hat unglaublich viele Editionen mitbetreut. Ich gehe jetzt mal auf ein paar wichtige Namen, vielleicht aus der alten Musik. Das ist Jean-Philippe Rameau und natürlich die Pièce de Clavecin von Couperin, wo die ersten 3 Bände bei Bärenreiter erschienen sind. Um eine persönliche Bemerkung mir zu erlauben, eine meiner absoluten Lieblingseditionen, die ich fast täglich benutze. Und wenn Sie noch ein Weihnachtsgeschenk suchen oder so, das lohnt sich. Damit machen Sie jedem eine Freude, der Cembalo spielt. Er hat sich aber auch mit Werken von Claude Debussy beschäftigt, da läuft die Edition, glaube ich, noch. Er hat Chambonnière herausgegeben, Opern von Rameau. Er war auch Präsident der Société Française de Musicologie und Chair in Musicology at the Royal Northern College of Music in Manchester für 6 Jahre, 2017 bis 2023, und ist jetzt wieder frei von dieser Tätigkeit. Jetzt freuen wir uns sehr, dass Denis Herlin zu uns gekommen ist. Wie schon Martin gesagt hat, er wird auf Englisch sprechen. Sie können dann im Anschluss gerne auf Französisch natürlich oder Englisch Fragen an ihn richten. Und er wird jetzt zu einem sehr spannenden Thema sprechen, nämlich zu dem 4. Buch der Pièce de Clavecin, was nächstes Jahr erscheinen wird. Aber mehr möchte ich jetzt nicht verraten. Bitte schön.
Danke. Guten Morgen. I would like to thank warmly Johannes Benke and Jean-Christophe Dijoux for having invited me to present my work on this new edition of François Couperin, published by Baron Writer. Since 1216, I have been working on a critical edition of the 4 books of harpsichord by François Couperin for Baron Writer. I am now coming to the end of this adventure with the publication next year of the 4th book. Couperin's harpsichord pieces enjoy exceptional distribution during the author's lifetime, but also after his death. The harpsichordist Kenneth Gilbert, who published an edition of Couperin's pieces in 1970s, pointed out that each of the 4 books had different printings: 7 for the first, 7 for the second, 5 for the third, and 3 for the fourth. At the end of this bibliographical survey, during which I was able to compare 189 copies of the 4 books, I identified 16 impressions of the first book, 15 of the second, 10 of the third, and 5 of the fourth. It has almost twice as many Gilbert as inventoried. This comparison have enabled me to see how Couperin I lost my line, sorry. I will find it. Never to me. How Couperin modified the introductory pages as he moved house, as new works appeared, and as the financial crisis of the 1720s took its toll. I have also been able to follow the correction made to music, not all at once after this first printing, as Gilbert believed, but rather during the second, the third, and even the fourth printings that followed for the first 3 books. Through this bibliographical labyrinth, we can better understand how the music was distributed. Copy was purchased either at Couperin's home or from music dealers such as Boivin or Leclerc. Sold in blank, Idest unbound, the work was the result of an assembly between the introductory pages, which were regularly updated, and the music, which had gone through several states, but which, due to the handling of copper or tin plates that is entitled, was left subject to continuous transformations. All these factors indicate that the print runs of each book, the exact number of which do not know, unfortunately, were small. Given the cost of the paper and printing, this helped to spread the cost of publishing. Returning to the 4th book, its production follows a similar process to the first 3 books. If we are to believe the text in the introductory pages of the 4th book, which unlike the other 3 books does not bear the title of preface because of its brevity, the pieces that make up the volume were completed in 1727. I quote Couperin. These pieces have been finished for about 3 years, but since my health diminishes day by day, my friends have advised me to stop working, and I have not composed any major works since then, end quote. This date is all the more plausible given that the 4 or 5 years separate each of the first 3 books of harpsichord pieces. 1713 for the first book, 1717 for the second, 4 years later, 1722 for the third, 5 years later, and 1727 for the 4th book, according to the introductory text, so also 5 years later. His state of health no doubt explains why the 4th book contains a number of omissions and inconsistencies that appear in the final opus. My purpose here will be to examine the various impressions of the 4th book and the question it raises. But before addressing this point, it is worth returning to a few aspects of Couperin's life after the publication of the third book in 1722. In March 1723, the composer left La Rue de Poitou, where he had been living since 1717, you see on the screen, to take up a residence until his death in 1733 in Rue Neuve des Bons Enfants, vis-à-vis des écuries de l'hôtel de Toulouse, the residence of Louis-Alexandre de Bourbon, Comte of Toulouse, natural song of Louis XIV and the Marquise de Montespan, and one of the pupils of François Couperin. According to Tuton d'Itillier, le Comte de Toulouse continued to give him a pension of 1,000 livres until his death, end quote. In this building, which still exists today on the corner of Rue Radziwiłł and Rue des Petits Champs, he sublet for 525 livres per year, I quote, an entire flat, a cellar and a small attic, end quote, on the second floor to a certain Antoine Bouton, Marchand paper of the king. He renews this lease on 5 June 1728 for a further 9 years, and I quote the inventor, the agreement, said he knew it well as he had been living there for several years and was happy with it, end quote. Moreover, since Louis XV returned to Versailles in June 2072, Couperin seems to have returned to the court. In particular, he gave harpsichord lessons to the Infanta Marianne Victoire of Spain, the young king's fiancée, who arrived in France in January 1722 as Louis Langer, ordinary of the King Chapel, mentioned to his colleague Jean de Lamare in a letter of 16 June 1724. I quote the letter. The Infanta Queen is also in good health, growing and showing great promise. Mr. Couperin is very devoted to her exercises and is showing her how to play the harpsichord, and Monsieur Mouret from Madame Dumaine how to play music, which makes Mr. Matteau very angry, end quote. As evidence of this apprenticeship, the composer included in the 24th ode, before the monumental L'Amphibie en mouvement de Passacaille, a short gavotte for his young people entitled La Belle Javotte, autrefois l'Infante. We can ask the Javotte is something very Spanish, I don't know. It could be an hypothesis, Javotte, I don't know why. Louis XV, no of age to ensure his succession, so the Duc de Bourbon, the kind prime minister, chooses Marie Leszczyńska, then at age 22, daughter of the deposed king of Poland, Stanislas Leszczyński. It is not a coincidence then that Couperin opened his fourth book with a piece entitled La Princesse Marie, a two-part work that follows in the third part with un air dans le goût polonais, placing him under the queen's protection. And if you remember, there is only the first and the second book where there is a dedication, the first to Pajot de Villers, second to Mr. Prat, it's a financial person, and La Duchesse de Clavecin for Louis XV, and the only one, there is no dedication in the other books by Couperin. Also, she played several instruments, Marie Leszczyńska, including the harpsichord, but it is not known whether Couperin gave her lessons. The queen was a great music lover, and from 1725 to 1768 regularly organized musical events at the court known as the Concerts de la Reine. During the 1720s, Couperin, feeling his health declining, ensured that his wife and two daughters could benefit from an income. After asking the king in September 1718 to divide his pension of 800 livres between his daughter, the nun Marie-Madeleine, and his wife, Couperin made an official request on 12 December 1723 to the fabric of the church of Saint-Gervais that his cousin, Nicolas Couperin, be granted survivorship of his position as organist. Having obtained the authorization, he signed an agreement with the latter in 28 December 1723, a document which has now been lost, but whose clauses are described in the paper of his after-death inventory of September 1733. I quote, "The late Sir Couperin is in capacity as titular of the organ of the parish of Saint-Gervais, ceded from day and date of the writing to Nicolas Couperin, the survivorship of the organ, with the accommodation annexed to the organist and all the profits, with the exception of the 400 livres that the fabric pay annually, which 400 livres the late Sir Couperin reserved for himself and obliged Nicolas Couperin to serve the organ and pay to the widow of the late Sir Couperin from the day of his death the sum of 200 livres annually until the death of his widow. End quote. Finally, a few months before the publication of the 4 books, on 16 February 1730, he obtained from Louis XV that the survivorship of the office ordinary of the King's music for the harpsichord that he had acquired in March 1717 from Jean d'Anglebert Jr. could be passed on his youngest daughter, Marguerite Antoinette. Titon d'Utillier states, I quote, that the king has granted Marguerite Antoinette a singular grace in favor of the wise and admirable way in which she plays the harpsichord, namely the survival of her father's position as harpsichordist of the chamber, which he relinquished 3 years before his death. She played the harpsichord at all the concerts held in the king's and queen's apartment, as the incumbent is too old to perform the duties. The king has also chosen this young lady to teach king's daughter, Mesdames de France, they were very fond of music, to play the harpsichord, end quote. And a month after having obtained the king's agreement for his youngest daughter on 19 March 1730, he ceded to Guillaume Marchand, organist of Notre-Dame de Versailles, the exercise and survivorship of his office as organist of the King's Chapel for the January quarter, I quote, in recognition of the fact that Guillaume Marchand, organist of the parish of Versailles, has served for him to this day of an account of his infirmities, on condition that he served during the said January quarter of each year without being able to claim any remuneration, honors and prerogative, preeminences, or other things attributed to the said office until after the death of Mr. Couperin. End quote. But Couperin was not the only one to have health troubles. His wife, Marianne, who died 11 years after her husband, was saved probably around 1726-1727 by the doctor Thiers de Marconnet. In his book Nouvelles découvertes en médecine très utile pour le service du roi, published in 1728, he mentioned that the wife of Monsieur Couperin, organist of the king and of Saint-Gervais, was called back from death to life by his remedies, end quote. The remedies are not nice when you read the book, but it works, apparently. And perhaps the Allemand, La Convalescente, which opened the 16th Ode, is an evocation of his wife's illness. Why not? And in similar vein, Les Pavots in 17th Ode, a plant known for its analgesic effect, could be linked to the medicine used to relieve pain. Despite these setbacks, Couperin devoted all his energy to publishing a series of chamber music works following on from the 4 Concerts Royaux. He had added to his 3rd book of harpsichord pieces in 1722. In 1724, he published Les Goûts-réunis, or Nouveaux Concerts, which followed on from the Concerts Royaux, numbering them from 5 to 13, and even suggesting that it should be brought together in the same binding. He added to this publication was followed this next a large trio sonata. We have the pleasure to listen to this sonata yesterday, Le Parnasse ou l'Apothéose de Corelli. This publication was followed the next year by his counterpart, an instrumental concert under the title Apothéose composée à la mémoire immortelle de l'incomparable Monsieur de Lully. And then, in 1726, he delivered his trio in 4 separate parts, which is entitled Les Nations, reworked versions of earlier works. And then, the pièce de viol, also in separate parts, appeared in 1728. On the title page of this, Couperin mentioned his name in abbreviation form by Mr. FC, as you can see on the screen, without indicating his function. However, he hardly disguised his authorship of them, since in the very year of their publication, he had them added to the list of these works in the catalogue accompanying the successive reprints of the books of harpsichord pieces. Yes, you can see here on the screen. Perhaps this unusual presentation was intended to avoid, offending the admirers of his illustrious colleague Marin Marais, who had just died on 15 August 1728, the same year. or to spare himself any criticism of his less than idiomatic writing, as Paolo Bandolfo has pointed out. Whatever the case, the publication date was not chosen at random. Unlike all the opus published between 1722 and 1728, including the third books of harpsichord pieces, all engraved by Louis Hector Hu, the fourth book was once again entrusted to François Duplessis, one of the most brilliant engravers of the first quarter of this century. He was responsible for the 9 executions of Couperin's first and second books, as well as the violet parts of Marin-Marais' fourth and fifth books, and the basso continuo parts of the third, fourth and fifth book, and also of Don Durieux pieces also. However, it is difficult to explain why Couperin turned to Duplessis again after 10-year hiatus. Was he too busy to work on the fourth book, or had Couperin been disappointed with some aspect of the engraving of the third books? We don't know. So many answered the question. Comprising 8 odd, the fourth book has 17 pages. And for the record, the first book has 73 pages, the second 83, the third 68 without the Concerts Royaux. And in the first and the third books, Couperin ensured that the engraving of the fourth book contained no page turn. He therefore added 2 blank pages to the music, the first on page 55 next to the Ombres errantes at the end of the 1705 odd, and I will explain later that it probably links to this piece who disappeared, 2 pieces has disappeared. And the second on page 59 after the gavotte of 1706 odd. These are listed in the table, page 76, as page en blanc, you can see here. Yes, I have to find my link. Most of the time, each page contains 6 systems, except for the opening of each odd, which contain only 5 because of the space occupied by the title. However, there are 3 exceptions to this rule. Les tambourins, in the 23rd odd, short pieces spread over 4 systems, and les guirlandes and l'amphibie of the 24th odd, longer pieces that occupy 7 systems per page. In the case of l'amphibie, Duplessis achieved a tour de force by fitting the 161 bars of this imposing pace in Mouvement de Passacaille on 2 pages by tightening the engraving to the maximum, which led to a number of errors and oversights. For the record, he had engraved the 120 bars of La Passacaille of the 8th order on 4 pages, the only example of page turning in the 4 books. In the new edition, to be published next year, the engraver has managed to fit Les Guirlandes on 2 pages. It's a bit rather dense, as you can see. But however, it has not been possible in the case of l'amphibie, which now occupies, unfortunately, 4.5 pages. I'm very sorry of that, but we have no solution. And so that's a very tense for Les Guirlandes. Unlike the first 3 books, in which Couperin introduced new signs of rhythmic specificity for each one, the fourth book contains none. And this is a continuation of the third book. So, abandonment of the different size for tremblement, a large one, and a shorter one when the note is not too long, and a large one when the note value is long. And also, he no more use the suspension. It's interesting because in this piece, La Castellane, he added the suspension before. It's not in the first printing, for example. No more passages noted with 215 eighths, 6 notes. You can find in the second book and also in the Prélude l'art du clavecin. But that Couperin was very interesting by this unusual rhythmical notation. You know, that's the reason why I can be sure that the small letter to Couperin, the only autograph we have that published in early music with a musical example, is really by Couperin. This very specificity I can't find in Marin-Marais or in Clambeau or other composer. That's very Couperin idea. Similarly, the phrasing slur, would add endpoint and squat off, in use in the first book, are maintained in order to distinguish them from the rodent bars slurs, whose purpose is to indicate notes that are tied. Their use sometimes leads to confusion with another sign that Couperin used very frequently in the third and fourth book, but also in the first one, the oblique line, and we have discussion yesterday about that point, that connect two notes. And for example, yes, that's I missed something. That's the only thing he kept from the third book. This phrasing, for indicate the end of a phrase. It's also in the fourth book. My discussion was about this line, I should choose example in La Crouille ou La Couprinette of the 24th Ord. It's bass 13, lower staff. Duplessis used small lines indicated a square edge and slurs for a similar passage as in bar 17. So, you have practically exactly the same thing and you see the difference. I think it's probably, that's a difficult point, a very difficult point. Sometimes, do I correct that? I think in that case, probably. I think that square slur is better and it's more consistent. And perhaps, the orthograph of Couperin was not so clear, also for the engraver. Or perhaps Couperin was absolutely fed up with correction, I don't know. Not to be so precise, and so so you can see it's very strange. And when we looked yesterday to the concert of L'Apothéose de Lully, we have the same problems, so many times. And sometimes also in Concerts Royaux, there is a confusion with this line on the basso continuo with only a small line indicated there is no chord to play. So there is very big confusion of that in Couperin and also in Les Goûts-réunis also. Alors, that's a big question, and on the line also we can say, as I agree with Amanda Beyer, that in a very slow movement it can be something very, you can at the harpsichord held the note, tenir la note, and for les fauvettes plaintives, for example, it could work. But in sometimes it's very very fast pieces, and it means nothing in that case. I think, I don't know. It's a discussion. Unlike the first three books, for which it had been possible to date the many successive reprints, dating and classifying the copy of the fourth book proved more complex than those of the first three. Couperin no longer moved or composed new works. As for the correction in the engraving of the fourth book, they are, as we shall see, minimalist. When we consult copies of the fourth book, whether in MSLP, Gallica, or when you buy a facsimile, we are immediately surprised by the differences between the copy. For example, sometimes you have an avis, sometimes not. You have a cartouche on page 48, and you have no cartouche. So, yes, there is something what I call a bibliographical imbroglio. I've tried to clarify. I've tried. 24 copies of the four books have survived to this day, and further 5 are in private collection, making a total of 29. They can be divided into main categories: 8 copies, all in a public library bearing the address of l'auteur, près la place des Victoires, and the other with Monsieur Couperin, organiste de Saint-Gervais, proche de l'église. It's Nicolas Couperin. As I said before, Nicolas Couperin continued to sell the work of François Couperin until his death in 1748, in agreement with the composer's widow, who left the flat in Rue Neuve des Beaux-Enfants at the end of December 1773 to move with her daughter to Versailles, Rue des Récollets, in a small apartment, so no place for selling music outside Paris, moreover. And unfortunately, and also for the sale, it was divided between Nicolas Couperin and Boivin and Leclerc, the other places when you can buy music, of course. Unfortunately, we do not know how the sum from the sales of the volumes were divided between them. According to the register of la Chambre syndicale de la librairie, 3 copies of the fourth book were deposited on 22 August 73. Thanks to an old call number appearing in one of the volumes kept in the music department. You see this call number? Yes, this one. It's 349. It's noted. This call number has been noted by the Abbé Martin, the librarian, and it is in the catalogue he made for the music. And you see exactly the same number. It's piece by Martin, and so we can be sure that this copy, bound in green parchment, is the one was deposited on 22 August 73. And I realized that later, and so I checked of the other for the first 3 books, and it works for the second and the third, and there is no deposit on for the first one, or perhaps it has been lost. But the other volume, it works. It's exactly the same. And so how is this copy? Very interesting. If you can see this copy, there are 4 pages before the music, title page. The verso of the blank title page 2 is blank. So you have this short preface explaining why it has taken so much time for publishing. And then the famous catalogue, and in which the Couperin had added 4e livre de pièces de clavecin. And also, more interesting, the general privilege of 1713 for 20 years and engraved by Duplessis. That's very classical. 3 other copies have the same characteristic. The first is in the collection of the Bibliothèque de l'Arsenal. The second is now in the British Library, and it's very interesting because they have the name of Monsieur Le Riche de la Pouplinière, a great music lover and a patron of Jean-Philippe Rameau. And the third is in the collection of Princeton University and is missing the last page where the privilege appears. What all these copies have in common is the cartouche at the beginning of the 25th ode, page 48, before the first bass of La Visionnaire. And I quote what Couperin said. You know, it's very Duplessis style to have this ornament. It's the same in the Marin Marais also, you can find it. As this ode is in C minor, it is advisable to play the following piece before this one because of the modulation, end quote. This comment is a bit odd, to say the least, since the piece that follows, La Visionnaire, is La Mystérieuse, but La Mystérieuse is in C major rather than in C minor, which does not resolve the question of modulation, in fact. Couperin realized this and had a short text entitled Avis sur ce livre, engraved and printed, explaining that the peculiarity due to the loss of 2 pieces, I quote Couperin. And so it is entitled Avis sur ce livre. And the style of this text is engraved by Duplessis too. It's very Duplessis style too. My first idea in beginning the 25th ode was that it should be in C minor and major. But after the first piece in C minor, I have the idea to write one in E flat major, the relative major key for such an ode of C minor, and for a good reason. The first and third pieces have been lost. We have printed this ode as best we can, now having thought appropriate due to the gravity of my illness to work at this composition. If we later find these pieces, I will remedy the defect myself, or at least I will direct those who will to remedy it for me. And at the point, the little text, the cartouche on page 48, at the start of La Visionnaire, will become invalid. But it does not harm the book, to the book in general, nor to each individual pieces. End quote. This avis sur le livre, in fact, is pasted to the verso of the title page. You remember it was blank, the verso title page, but it has been pasted, you can see on the copy. There is 3 surviving copies with the avis pasted on the page. The one is in Princess Amalia von Preußen. You can see that it has been stopped, and also is in Bibliothèque Nationale. And there is a third one in the Bibliothèque des Conservateurs de Geneva that the first I show at the beginning. Apart from this edition, these 3 copies are identical to the first 3. It's practically the same print, but with addition that Couperin stuck something on the pages. There is still a last state of Couperin's lifetime made before May 73, when Couperin renewed his privilege for 10 years. Doubtless, finding it a bit tedious to paste this notice, he reprinted the 4 introductory pages. The time the avis was no longer pasted but printed. You can see this copy is very printed. It's very different. As is the case in the only existing copy, which is in the Musik och Theater Bibliothek in Stockholm, which still bears the same privilege of Duplessis. You can see here, exactly. So it's interesting that we have a new state that decided to change his mind and to have something printed. And what is interesting in this copy, as the intervention to Couperin was not confined to this introductory pages. As a piece in C minor that was to have opened the 25th Ode as neither seemed been found nor replaced, as he not considered that the idea of playing La Mystérieuse within C major before La Visionnaire made no sense in terms of the relative key, Couperin had the cartouche on page 48 removed. That was before, and now in the copy of Stockholm, you have that. That was my question. My question was, when I see the differences, before I find this copy, is what this has been made by Couperin himself or by Nicolas Couperin? Because all the copy of Nicolas Couperin have this. And there is also he took advantage of the situation to have Duplessis make for correction to the two pieces in 26th Ode and 27th Ode, respectively. The first two concern La Sophie at bar 25, omission of the beans for the 16 notes, you can see here, it has been corrected. And also in Les Pavots, we have the same process. At bar 9, omission of the beams for the 8th note, been corrected by Duplessis. And Couperin had a missing tie between the two E's on the left hand, so no tide, and you have the tide here. And two breathing signs at the end of the bar. No breathing sign, yeah, two breathing signs. And that's all, except if I missed something, it could be possible. Sometimes it's not so obvious to find this tiny detail. So there is no further changes after. And we can see that these corrections are very minimal compared with those made in the other three books. However, there are a number of places that need to be corrected. For example, in Pantomime, in the 26th Ode at bar 8, the C sharp with a D top by a pincé is very impossible to play. You can't with a pincé. It doesn't work, so you have to correct it with a B. Returning to La Visionnaire, page 48, he could, for example, have taken the opportunity to add some missing squared-off phrasing slurs. For example, here, it's missing. In general, you can find here, for example. Yes, and here too. And also, he didn't correct this time, because it's probably, if it's a G natural, with a G flat, you have, except if you consider the first G flat, it's very, very old. It should be corrected. And also, this strange chord, very strange. It should be probably a B, D at the right hand, instead of, yes, it's very, perhaps you have listened to this record, I think Blandine Verlet did this version, it's very, very bizarre. Well, that's an open question, if you have any ideas on that. In the inventory after his death in September 1733, 11 volumes of the fourth book were left in sheets. Perhaps they were similar to the one of Stockholm I have just described, for as yet I have not discovered any copy bearing the address of Couperin with the new privilege of May 1733. The only copy having this new privilege bear all the name of Nicolas Couperin, organiste Saint-Gervais. There are 8 of them, to which must be added 3 other in private hands. Though the introductory pages have been changed again for the 4 to 6, and the avis sur le livre has been moved. And you see the title page, page 2 blank, page 3 with a text by Couperin, page 4 blank, page 5 and 6 the avis and the catalogue. And the general privilege granted for 10 years on May 1733. The music includes the correction I have described in the Stockholm exemplar, in particular the deletion of the cartouche on page 48. And 5 other copies are similar to those I have just described. One, it's very strange, is engraved with a privilege by U and having the date of 1713. So you engraved this privilege for Les Nations and les pièces de viol, and I suppose it was with the Nicolas Couperin address, so it's been practically nothing. And we have the same case for the third and second book. And I suppose that Nicolas Couperin had no more privilege of the 1733 and have some copies remaining, so we put there, and it was easier. And the other one is this privilege renewed by Marie-Anne Anceau, the widow of Couperin, in 1745, you know, et engraved by U. The new one is engraved by U for 12 years. But it's interesting, it's a friend of mine who sent me a mail recently, do you know that also Marguerite Antoinette, the Couperin's daughter, renewed the privilege in 1757 also. But I haven't found a copy with this new privilege. But it's interesting on the fact there is still possible to have a copy of Couperin at that time protected with a new privilege. Oui. It's a 1745, the only one. This one is an older one in Les Nations and Les Pièces de Viol only. Yeah. But in general, because Couperin used Duplessis privilege at that time. In conclusion, if we move away from the somewhat arid side of this material bibliography, it has to be said that the study of these many copies revealed traits of Couperin's personality. It also proved his extraordinary inventiveness, which he already knew from the music itself. By devising a new format for the publication of his pieces, format rather different than Rameau. The Rameau is an oblong format. Having them engraved with rare finesse and taking care to avoid page churning as much as possible, Couperin revealed his desire to leave posterity a musical testament. He was undoubtedly at the price of financial sacrifice that he was able to embark on this publishing adventure. In the preface to the fourth book, Couperin writes, not without nostalgia, tinged with an hint of bitterness, that, I quote, Couperin hopes that his family will find in his portefeuille enough to make him regret. At the time, end quote, at the time of this death, this portefeuille, which according to Dictionnaire l'Académie Française of 1694, are cartons folded in two and covered by leather of some other fabric, serving to carry a sheet of paper. And it could be a way to stock, you know, the copy of the music. That's the sense I have for portefeuille. But because when you read the post-death inventory of September 1733, there were still 33 volumes of the first book, 10 of the second, 17 of the third, 11 of the fourth, 7 of the Goûts-réunis, 11 of the Pièces de Viol, 5 of Lully Apothéose, and 2 of the Nation, not forgetting 12 of L'Art de toucher le clavecin. Not content with continuing to sell this volume, his cousin Nicolas recovered the copper and tin plates and continued to exploit the work until his death in 1714, and probably after, if we consider the new privilege of Marguerite Antoinette. As proof of the success that his work continued to enjoy after his death, 82 copies, 82, it's very important, of the 4 books bearing Nicolas Couperin address have survived out of a total of 189, which represent 43% of the production. So it's interesting the way that Musik Couperin was diffused after his death. The number of copies of the 4 books that have survived testify to their remarkable success, proves that Couperin well deserved to quote the last sentence of the preface to the third book, that immortality to which almost all men aspire, which not in a way chimerical in that way. Thank you so much. Yes, it was Ida.
Summer. Yeah, thank you very much for having given us those fascinating insights in the new edition. We are looking forward to much more next year. It will appear at the beginning of the year?
No, at the middle of the year, I think. In the summer, I think, summer. Yep.
Oh, great. We have 10 minutes for questions.
in French, in English.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Two questions, or one question and a minor question added. The first is, you mentioned quite at the beginning of your paper that you have some indications that not that every edition of these 4 books were not made in a high number. What are the indications for this? And the second point is just a question of curiosity. Do you compare the different editions, just how to call it, manually, just with your eyes? You don't use something like
No, it's my eyes. I know ChatGPT.
No.
Hello, Chat. Could you compare for me?
No, it's not Chat.
With my eyes, yes.
No, there's wonderful tools. We have used it in Vicentino edition, Jahren collator, where you can automatically compare these pages.
It will be nice, yes. I would
Okay. I can give you the address. This
Oh,
is
yeah,
really,
yeah.
It's a new step, because
Sometimes you can
really,
miss something. It's
you will
true.
miss so much.
It's
yeah.
true. That's a difficult. So for the printing and the number, I have a feeling that they are separated, between the, as I said, the introductory pages that change every time and the music. And so I think the fact, because we know that you have all the copper and tin plates at home in this apartment, so it takes a lot of space, I think. Otherwise, there is an attic, a cellar, I don't know. And I think to manipulate that is a bit difficult. And I have the feeling that there is two separate things. For the music, perhaps the impression was a bit higher, and for the beginning page, smaller, in order to change every time, to be more accurate with what the publication of Couperin. And so. But I think it's because it costs a lot of money. The paper is very high, and we have no indication of the cost of a printing of that. The only minute I found is later. It's in 1770 for one book. We have the cost of engraving, impression, and it's for a book for Mesdames de France. But it's not the same period, so it's difficult to compare the cost. But I think the cost was in fact very high, in fact. So that's. But you know what we realize, that Couperin sells a lot of books finally, and so it's a difficult question. I think we have no element exactly on this aspect of music, and nothing to compare also, unfortunately. Who was the printer of that? We don't know. We know after for Balbat, for example, it's imprimé par Montulet, but at the time of Couperin, we don't know how they do that. And also, what is interesting also that I show in Pantomime, there is no correction of notes. And it's the case in the first book, there is some error of notes, and the second too. But the third, there is correction of notes, and made by Couperin for the first printing, but changed by U. So you can imagine that you have to put the plate and make the correction. So that question, I would love to have more information of the process, I think, of the music at that time. But I think Couperin is very unique in the way, because in general we have, for other composers, 3, 4, 5 copies, and we don't know. And it's very frustrating to see how the thing changed.
I have many questions, but I'll make it short. One is just to follow this. Did I understand right? You said there were 189 surviving copies of all 4 books?
Yes.
Okay. And a big amount of them was still at Nicolas Couperin?
For not half.
A third?
But, for more than third.
Okay.
Between third and half.
Which
yes.
would mean that he didn't sell so much, or he sold much more, but we don't have them.
Yes, probably. And sometimes you also, I can't find an example for this book, but sometimes you have l'auteur, Couperin, and there's something pasted with Nicolas Couperin by hand. There is some copy with that, but I can't find one with the 4th book. But there is one for the 3rd, it's in Vienna, and he puts a sheet of paper and with his name by hand also.
Yes. And about the well, there are copies, and then there were editions, like in L'Art de Toucher, there he really made 2 editions. But in the books, for example, they had the plates, and when they needed more, they just made more books or what, so we can't talk of real different editions.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's a way, because the ways to compare the correction and the way also the change the address, he had his new work, he changed the catalog many times. If you can see in my edition of the first book by Referat, you see all the catalog. At the beginning, there is an avis for l'art de clavecin in 1716, another one 1717, and then you have also very interesting a copy when the address of Couperin is empty, because we don't know where he was. It's 1716, and you don't know that it's in British Library. It's a fascinating copy, I think. So there is what is interesting also with Couperin, there is no announcement in the Mercure, for example, like Marin Marais. So. I think he did himself his self-promotion with the change of the date and everything in the book.
Thank you. And the other question about the 25th order.
Yes.
2 things. Did I understand right then that we have the actual first piece is missing?
Yes,
then we would have.
He said exactly that. That's very problematic, I think. The first piece is missing, and the third one.
So we not missing visionnaire, missing mystérieuse, and so on.
Yes, there is something between first one in C minor, la visionnaire, a third one in C minor, and then after la mystérieuse, and so on.
Yeah, and so on.
But what is problematic in C, because I remember show you the page blank, the blank page.
Which is
but it doesn't work, in fact. It was very strange, because if you are before la visionnaire, and as Couperin is very accurate on the tone page, probably the first page was on 2 pages in C minor, and after it's a bit problematic also. After la visionnaire, which is on 2 pages, you have also probably another piece on 2 pages. I find no solution, because it's la mystérieuse is on 2 pages too.
And we still have Les Ombres Errantes as the last piece, but then an empty page.
Yeah, but that's rather strange. And my question is, what to do with the 25th ord? Said, because my problem was, it said perhaps this cartouche was removed by Nicolas Couperin, so it's not valid. Perhaps Couperin wants something to play before, for example, La Mystérieuse, even if it is not really in C minor, even if the end is a little bit C minor, but not really. So what to do? To put in the new edition La Mystérieuse before and La Visionnaire after? Or when I discovered the copy of Stockholm, I see perhaps it's not a good idea, and perhaps to leave the Visionnaire first and to have La Mystérieuse. I would like to have your what do you think about that point? It's one aspect, but I'm a bit puzzled with this this decision, because at the beginning I have the idea to put La Mystérieuse before, and then after La Visionnaire. But no, I'm a bit...
I mean, La Visionnaire is much of an overture. So
yes, that's true. That's also the problem, I think. It's like an overture, yes.
Could you go back, please, to La Visionnaire? I have one thing about the end of the first part.
Yes, this one.
Yes, I wanted to ask what you decided to do with the last chord, because we have the custodes also in the line before that show you those 2 notes, and it's really strange. What does Strauss do?
I suggest to change, because I think it's when you play it, you have you say no.
Was macht Strauss?
Doesn't. Alors you can imagine this in Visionnaire, but I'm very doubtful. What do you think about that chord? Because it's rather strange.
It could be one of those bizarre things, like the end of La Couperin with the second.
Yes, but it works, the second. It's not. It's okay. It's a bit Couperin. What Julien explained is very. But this one is very, very odd. It's
odd. True. I agree absolutely. But it could be La Visionnaire or something. Oh.
Yeah. Yes, but. Non, oui, c'est ça. Moreover, le tremblement. Avec le tremblement qui est très typique dans le tierce. Oui. Moi, je pense que c'est décalé, même si les guidons sont corrects. Hein. Donc, I suggest to make a correction with a small note for the B and a spot saying, well, if you like to play with an F, you can, but you can listen to Blandine Verlet record. It's very hard.
And the other question, the chord with the G natural.
Ah, yes.
You would like to change to G flat?
No, I left like that.
Okay.
And I changed only the slur with a squared off.
Ah, okay, I understand.
Because I think also the G flat here is.
Yeah. So then I'm relieved because I love so much the chord with it.
No. I don't want to do that. I only change the slur. The slur squared off. And what do you think on the? I think the best is to keep the visionnaire first. I think because La Mystérieuse is a. It's very strange. It doesn't work with the. I think that's the reason why when he realized that it was very bizarre, he had this avis and said, "No, what did I do with the relative key? I'd say it doesn't work." So that's my explanation.
Yeah.
Yes, that's so. And you know also the fact that there is one page after La Gavotte, which is a nice piece, and perhaps if Couperin has a lot of energy, he will have composed something that I think is too tired probably to do something.
Many children in a small apartment.
Very short last question. Or?
Yes, very short. It's just if you have a comment to do about manuscript copy of the book, if there are interesting corrections.
No, there is no manuscript copy of the book. No manuscript copy. We have manuscript copy of the first, second, and three, but only some pieces. So it's not very helpful. And I can't find a copy with correction, for example, which would be nice, which was the case for the third book. We have a copy corrected by Couperin, I'm sure. But here, nothing. I think Couperin is too tired. That's a problem we have with the fourth book, I think.
Ja, dann verbleibt mir, mich ganz herzlich zu bedanken für Denis Herlin, für diese
thank you.
fantastische Präsentation. Vielen Dank nochmal. du lieber nachher? Ja. Also er auch lieber. Das nach der Mittagspause. Genau. Ich stelle dich kurz vor.
Muss ich einfach mit diesem Mikrofon?
Du kriegst jetzt das Headset.
Also nur, dass es einfach nicht zum Vorteil ist für Cembalo Klang.
Also sie macht das ständig.
Okay, gut. So.
Man braucht das für den Stream.
Okay, gut. Jetzt.
Sonst hören die Leute gar nicht. Wie eine Brille?
Ja, genau. Das war, heute Morgen war es viel wärmer. Ich weiß nicht, was da. Vielleicht ist es die Lüftung. Ja. Können wir mal gucken, ob da. Findest du es auch kalt hier? Wurde gerade geklagt, es sei kalt. Nicht? Okay. Ja. Stimmt, aber es ist kalt, ja.
Also ich habe das Gefühl, das ist gut.
Ich kann es nicht sagen. Funktioniert das denn? Ich glaube, sie hat es noch nicht eingeschaltet. Hier kommt es runter. Ja, es sind alle ausgestattet mit der nötigen Technik und wir können fortfahren. Wie eingangs schon gesagt, ist ja ein Ziel dieser Veranstaltung auch, die Forschung, künstlerische Praxis und Pädagogik zusammenzubringen. In diesem Sinne fahren wir jetzt direkt fort mit künstlerischer Praxis und Pädagogik, wenn man so will, der Anwendung dessen, was in Editionen geschieht, auf das, was auf der Bühne geschieht. Und hierfür darf ich begrüßen Jean-Christophe aus Freiburg. Auch er verbindet in seiner Person die beiden Hochschulen, die diese Veranstaltung ausrichten. Er hat sowohl in Freiburg im Breisgau studiert, als auch an der Schola Cantorum Basiliensis und ist jetzt schon seit einiger Zeit, 2019, Professor für Cembalo und leitet das Institut für historische Aufführungspraxis an der Hochschule Musik Freiburg im Breisgau. Jean-Christophe ist ein international bekannter Cembalist. Er hat unglaublich viel schon gemacht und Preise gewonnen. Ich greife jetzt nur 2 Highlights heraus. Er hat den Bach-Wettbewerb 2014 mit dem ersten Preis gewonnen und auch den Telemann Competition gewonnen. Natürlich zahlreiche Aufnahmen vorgelegt. Aber er ist nicht nur im Bereich der alten Musik tätig, sondern auch der zeitgenössischen Musik. Also hat ein wirklich sehr breites Spektrum. Ich bin sehr froh, dass wir gemeinsam diese
Ebenso.
Tagung ausrichten. Aber jetzt wechselst du quasi deine Rolle und wirst unser aller Cembalo-Lehrer, wirst exemplarisch mit 2 Studierenden der Schola Cantorum arbeiten.
Ja.
Also man muss dazu sagen, ihr kennt euch noch nicht,
Genau.
nur per E-Mail und habt euch jetzt gerade erst kennengelernt und werdet jetzt zum ersten Mal miteinander arbeiten. Ich wünsche allen Beteiligten viel Vergnügen dabei.
Ich möchte nur kurz etwas sagen im Vorfeld, also dass es mir so wirklich rührt, einfach zurück hier in diesem Raum zu sein, wo ich also so viele Konzerte erlebt habe, also mein Abschlusskonzert und genau, also und ich möchte dann auch also die Beteiligten danken, weil ich weiß, also das ist nicht immer unbedingt einfach so vor ein Publikum einfach im Masterkurs zu sein und deswegen würde ich auch vorschlagen, wie Amandine gestern, also dass wir machen das sozusagen alle zusammen. Wenn ihr Anregungen habt, Fragen, Vorschläge, gerne einfach zusammen diskutieren, sei es am Ende oder auch im Laufe der Stunde. Genau, und jetzt, hallo Juna. Also vielleicht kannst du kurz sagen, was du spielen wirst. Und darf ich?
Ich habe noch nicht gespielt heute.
Wunderbar, es ist ein Präludium, eben dafür gedacht. schön. Sehr schöne Musikerin. Also man spürt, dass du einfach etwas zu erzählen hast und das finde ich wirklich sehr, sehr schön. Ich würde einfach dich fragen wollen, vielleicht, also was sind deine Erwartungen oder deine Fragen, also bezüglich dieses Stückes?
Du meintest, das ist eben eine ein bisschen modifizierte Frage, aber wegen der Registrierung und wie man die beiden Manuelle brauchen sollte. Also dieser ist eben auf 4 Fuß und auf einem normalen französischen Cembalo würde ich das würde ich eben ein bisschen wechseln, aber hier war ich nicht sicher, dass man dass es auch nötig wäre, denn dieses Instrument ist so schön und man kann, glaube lange spielen auf demselben Manual, ohne dass es langweilig ist.
Mhm. Gut. Also ich muss jetzt ein kleines Exkursus machen. Also ich habe zu Hause ein vergleichbares Instrument, also gleicher Zeit. Und also nicht mit der gleichen Registrierung, allerdings also nicht mit dem 4 Fuß oben leider. Aber ich bin ziemlich erstaunt, wie gut einfach, also fast die 4 Bücher von François Couperin auf so eine Bauweise funktionieren. Es gibt erstaunlich wenige Stücke, die einfach nicht die Umfang haben. Es ist ziemlich überraschend. Und ich denke, also um zu deiner Frage wiederzukommen, also wenn man einfach liest, also was François Couperin schreibt, also es sind einfach Präludien, also im wörtlichen Sinne, nicht? Also es ist einfach, um das Cembalo zu erproben. Und das heißt, also, du wirst einfach anders reagieren, je nach Instrument, ja, also was du hast. Also was war dein Gefühl vielleicht jetzt? Also hättest du dir etwas anderes gewünscht oder?
Ich mache einen kleinen Unterschied zwischen diese 2 Teile sind ähnlich, aber anders. Und da wechsle ich normalerweise.
Ja. Also es ist auch die Frage, also ich finde das auch total spannend, also diese Frage des 4 Fuß oben. Weil, also wir haben zum Beispiel, also ich denke jetzt spontan bei Le Bègue, also Gavotten oder die Pièce de Clavecin, also die sowieso Couperin kannte, also ich meine, so ein sehr, also die waren sogar Kollegen und so weiter. Also ich sage jetzt einfach, natürlich nicht abwerten, aber prototypischen Gavotten, nicht? Also mit so ziemlich vollgriffig einfach links und einfach so frei, also mit viel Verzierung rechts. Und diese Art von Stücke bei Le Bègue funktionieren sehr, sehr gut auf einen 4 Fuß, alleine. Und dann kann man wirklich also in Tempo von Gavotte so spielen. Dann, also meine Frage wäre, weil wir denken einfach 4 Fuß, okay, das ist eine Oktave höher, dann klappt nicht ganz und so, aber wenn man das einfach wie eine Farbe sieht, also vielleicht würde auch also die Manualwechsel hier funktionieren. Also ich würde gerne einfach probieren, wir können einfach experimentieren und sehen, was passiert. Und also mit dem 4 Fuß, wie es ist. Und vielleicht spielst du etwas kurz davor? Also, wo war das? Ja, also wo du gespielt hattest zum Beispiel. Ja? Mhm. Ja, super. Ja, müsste man, also was denkt ihr? Ja.
I would not do this.
Yeah, me neither, but I wanted to hear it actually. Yeah.
I'm very glad that you mentioned this topic because it's one of my favorites. And even if I had arguments with Mark Kroll, I totally agree with him that the default registration should be full on.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have been thinking since Leonhard that the sound of the harpsichord should be a signal, a flute. Mm. And so we are all in French. We say we make nods in our head. How should I put the second one or add the fourth? There should be no question. If you have a beautiful instrument, use it. Just like when you have a big organ and you have extra stops that are not envisioned by the composer, you just add them. And so there are many proofs that we should not think the harpsichord as something you build on a note, but always something you subtract from the full registration. So my opinion is that if you don't have a good reason not to use all stops, don't do it. But for this code, for example, I would just play with everything from the beginning to the end. And among the proofs, the proofs are the well-known fact that Couperin asked to disengage the stops.
Yeah, exactly, in the pièce croisée.
Yeah. And also when he says in the Arcangelo Corelli that he plays the pieces for the students, it's like, oh, it's just wonderful on two harpsichords. Well, you can do it on a spinet, but not that good. Un plus grand effet près. And I absolutely refuse to be a spinet player, a harpsichord player. And I don't just have 1/8 or 2. When I have all three, I just use all three.
So let's hear that. C'est pas possible, non, je avec 2/8 dans ce cas. Voilà. Ouais, c'est de la brèche. Ja, okay.
Und dann machen wir es über.
Ja, gut. Ja, also klar, also so dieses Gefühl, das kennen wir natürlich als Cembalist schon. Ich denke vielleicht eben, also was du vielleicht hinzufügen könntest, also in deiner Ausführung, ist teilweise mehr Widerstand, also bei manchen Elementen, je nachdem, was sie einfach in der Rede bedeuten. Aber zuerst, also wir kommen dazu, also ich nehme das nur, weil, also wir hatten die Diskussion gestern beim Mittagessen, so, und ich denke, das ist tatsächlich kein Zufall. Also, weißt du, wenn er sagt, que la jambe droite doit être un peu en dehors. Also, weil ich denke einfach, also wenn man so spielt, also atmet man anders hier. Ja? Und also das ist natürlich ungewohnt, aber dann hat man l'accompagné, s'il s'en trouve, et il s'en trouve. Genau. Also, ich würde, also, darf ich kurz, also, lève-toi juste une fois, voilà, assieds-toi peut-être un peu plus au bord, voilà, et puis simplement être là. Voilà. On essaye, on voit ce qui se passe. On ne va pas tout jouer. Mais voilà, c'est une habitude à prendre, mais simplement penser en fait qu'on joue pour quelqu'un, hein, ça devait arriver.
Und macht es einen Unterschied für das Publikum?
Ja, es macht übrigens auch es ist eigentlich wichtig, wenn man die Kleidung der Zeit trägt. Ja, das ist etwas, was man heute eben nicht mehr bedenkt. Ja. Aber mit einem Grand Habit de Cour, wo man wirklich hier vorne als Frau, und das ist ja oft für Frauen gedacht, eine Spitze des Korsetts hat, kann man eigentlich gerade nicht vor einem Cembalo sitzen und besonders nicht an den Stühlen, die man benutzt hat. Das ist das Erste. Und dann hat man noch die Paniers. Die Paniers haben dann keinen Platz. Und für die Herren in einem Justerkorb mit sehr hohen Ärmeln, das sieht man an allen Porträts, hat man hier eine große Falte. Diese Falte kommt, ich meine, ich rede hier aus Erfahrung, weil ich habe mir das in Handarbeit alles gemacht, um das zu testen. Es ist einfach, unmöglich, ansonsten zu spielen auf diesen Möbeln aus der Zeit mit den Cembali, die ja die Piedmonts mit großen Verzierungen haben. Man kommt einfach nicht unter das Instrument. Das heißt, es ist wirklich wichtig, und das sollte eigentlich jeder Cembalist und Cembalistin mal machen, wirklich, also kein Kostüm, aber wirklich eine Reproduktion an sich anziehen und dann versuchen zu spielen. In dem Moment ändert sich alles. Dann macht alles Sinn. Ja.
Und auch die Erdung, allein das, on sent la gravité d'autant plus. Des petites choses. Je prends juste la place. Il y a quelque chose que je... Also, ist Französisch okay für alle? Oder? Ja, okay. Nein? Ah, okay. Also, so. Es gibt etwas, das Deutsch ist gut. Das mich, also vielleicht ist das ich alleine, aber ich finde das bemerkenswert, also alle Prälude, also das erste, also nicht alle. Das erste, also das dritte auch, so das zweite und das fünfte, beginnen also mit diesen typischen Unterschriften, genau. Also eineinhalb. Also das ist so. Okay. das ist auch der Fall, also dieses Spektrum entwickelt sich auch also für das vierte zum Beispiel. So, das heißt, man fügt sich, finde ich, also drin. Und beim ersten Präludium, also beginnt man dann mit einer Port de Voix. Ja. Und dann wird man dann anderweitig spielen wahrscheinlich. Ja. Also ich würde einfach, es ist nur mesuré, also es ist eine Annäherung zu, eine, Geschwindigkeit hier, da, aber es ist nur mesuré. Also ich würde einfach, das nutzen einfach, du hast, und auch für dein Konzert am Anfang, ich denke, wir denken auch, es muss rund, es muss gut klingen und so weiter, aber selbst nur mesuré hast du eine Bogengeschwindigkeit. Also wenn du dich stellst, das wäre eine Gambe, es gibt schon, sie werden das einfach, ansonsten, es spricht einfach nicht. Also ich denke wirklich, und so weiter. Und dann kann man wirklich eigentlich das ganze Präludium so sehen, sozusagen. Probierst du vielleicht schon? Und wir schauen, wo es führt. Ja, wunderbar. Sehr, sehr schön. Super. Du kannst gerne auch dein Tremblement am Anfang etwas überwinden. Das gibt es, Couperin sagt, es gibt alle Sorten von Tremblements. Es gibt sogar Tremblements, die kein Appui haben, weil sie zu kurz sind. Monteclair spricht von Tremblement fin zum Beispiel. Es gibt sogar welche, die aspiré sind. Und es gibt auch welche, die natürlich so viel mehr Klang erzeugen. Und ich denke, das wäre hier der Fall. Ich denke hier, das ist einfach ein Tyrolier. Genau. Le Charme. Ja. Und hier, das ist einfach wahrscheinlich eine Suspension. Nicht ganz. Das ist vorbereitet sowieso. Also man muss auch irgendwie wahrscheinlich die Pausen interpretieren sozusagen. Ne? Ein letztes Mal von vorne. Noch einmal von vorne. Super, super. Und ich würde dir vielleicht sogar raten, je prends ta place juste 2 secondes. Pardon. Ça va? Donc, effectivement, ça, je trouve ça beaucoup mieux. Je pense que ça, ce tour de gosier que tu as ici, doit aller plus vite que... Parce qu'en fait, c'est la même idée, mais pas sur la même harmonie. Mais il écrit en fait la Vitesse qu'il veut sur l'ornement. Et après, es gibt danach einfach diese Frage von diese Bindungen, nicht? Also mit diesen punktierten Rhythmen. Also wenn ich hier spiele... Das wäre auch hier ein Port de Voix. Ne? Möglicherweise ein Pincé auch. So wie, ja, sag mir.
Wieso würde er denn die Pincé mit wirklich den Noten schreiben.
Weil genau, aber
das
ich denke, es gibt einfach eine Menge von Schichten, zwischen ein Pincel mit dem Zeichen versehen und Noten, die einfach mehr im Laufe sozusagen geschehen. Also das ist wahrscheinlich hier auch nicht ganz schnell, aber ich finde, es gibt schon diese Idee. Ja. Und das ist auch ein Tierskolet mit Überwindung am Monavich. Genau. Probierst du vielleicht, aber ich denke wirklich hier, wir machen das gleich. Ich denke, das wäre interessant, damit zu experimentieren. Ja. Auch siehst du bei Kadenz. Umso mehr, dass die Musiker dieser Zeit, wenn sie ein Port de Voix singen, sie singen das mit der Silbe der Hauptnote. Ja. Probierst du ein letztes Mal vielleicht, wo du willst? Oder vielleicht noch einmal fortfahren, das war schon. Interessant, wenn man hat natürlich sehr, sehr viel Port de Voix und natürlich sollte man das variieren, das ist natürlich die Idee. Ich denke, es ist manchmal interessant, einfach zu experimentieren mit einem Kontrast von Flows. Zum Beispiel hier, du hast hier diese Aussage im Bass, es passiert jetzt was Neues. Es kann vielleicht auch viel später, es ist sowieso eine halbe. Und dann kannst du einfach entwickeln, wie du willst. Genau. Und kleiner Tipp, es ist erfahrungsgemäß, wenn man eine Poularde hat, ist das, glaube ich, hilfreich, wenn man einfach, bevor man anfängt, dass man einfach wirklich checkt, ob man total verfügbar ist, physiologisch. Manchmal klappt auch nicht, aber es hat mehr Chance zu klappen. Und ich denke, diese Sachen sind wirklich eigentlich sehr, sehr leicht. Keine verzogte. Rien, ça. Aber da schon. Möchtest du vielleicht irgendwo da? Und dann gehen wir mit einer Präsentation. Après le corps de droite, Jahren, si. Là, il faut l'écouter. Ouais, c'est ça. Et t'as pas besoin de préciser. On a souvent l'impression, man hat oft den Eindruck, man soll schnell spielen, aber oft spielt das, was wir wahrnehmen im Publikum ist schneller, als man denkt, wo man sitzt. Ja? Und das ist eine gute Nachricht für uns natürlich. Genau. Hast du vielleicht noch ein paar Fragen spezifisch zum Stück? Es ist natürlich sehr kurz,
vielleicht an den Fingersätzen.
Ja,
Ich finde, dass auf der letzten Zeile. Also es ist schnell geschrieben mit ganz vielen.
Ja, also es ist einfach
aber
diese Idee.
Satz behindert ein bisschen die.
Ja, ich würde vielleicht, also pardon, das also möglichst, also du musst einfach ausprobieren. So, also jeder hat seine eigene Physiognomie natürlich. Ja, pardon, et justement, on va voir si on va trouver. Pardon. Faut pas rester en bas, à mon avis. Si tu restes en bas, en fait, ça va pas marcher. Voilà. Et si ça va pas vite, il faut pas faire vite. Il y a quelque chose que tu peux ouvrir ici, je pense. Essaye juste. Vas-y, Rosa. Dans ce cas, oui, c'est bien. Je lâcherai le là. Super. Yes, ça c'était bien, ce port de voix. Et je pense, super. Et je pense que comme c'est vraiment très très bien la pensée, si la, sol, la, ti, peut-être que tu peux même te permettre de décaler un peu de do dièse à la fin, pour avoir un peu plus de bloom. Enfin bon, après c'est des... Voilà. Oui? Bah de rien. Merci. Ja, hallo Anastasia. Was spielst du Schönes?
To be honest, the English is
Okay.
better for me.
What are you playing for beautiful music?
Two pieces, one or two pieces from
Yeah.
the this week.
Tiens,
Sorry, my French is very bad.
No worries.
So Allemand and
Harmonique, okay. As you prefer.
Okay. Can I try the green one?
You would prefer to play on the green one?
I don't know, maybe.
You prefer, okay, so we can close that one.
Okay, thank you very much.
Danke, sehr schön. Das ist vielleicht erstmal so I guess I would probably ask you the same as with you now. What do you expect maybe from this, this moment of lesson? And do you have questions about the piece? I have things to say, but.
Actually, I don't have any questions about this piece. Actually, about the name.
Yeah.
Because it's very tricky to find like the same word in English. Maybe it's only one question about this piece.
So then I will turn to the. Do we know much about La Verneuil? No.
Maybe it's just the name of a person.
Yeah. It is. In any case, yeah.
Yeah, like a portrait.
Yeah.
Person.
Yeah. So I really like your sound. I mean, the way also I would say it fits to F minor. I mean, F minor is one of the keys nobody feels well in, so be it in France or in Germany or. So I like, in a way, the roundness that you have, which is and something a bit like this, I think, which fits quite well to the character of the piece. Though I think you could sometimes define things a bit more. And also about the Allemande, of course, it's written in common time, and we know what Mattheson says, Ordnung und Ruhe, we know what Marburg writes about it, and so on. When you look, the genealogy of the Allemande, starting from the Renaissance till this later thing, at the beginning they were in two. They were written in two, quite moderate, so not necessarily slow. And of course, towards the middle, second half of the 17th century, begins to appear the common time sign, before we have alla breve. But what's interesting is the shape of the harmonic structure often stays in two. And here, if you look, for example, of the fourth line, this is something quite typical. If you look at the bass, and of course it sounds very Couperin, it sounds very French, but of course Corelli is never very far. I mean, also in the language and the harmony thing. I think it would probably help to have this half note maybe in Hinterkopf, even if you know that you should keep actually this feeling of calmness that you have. And I think something that could help you is probably to, sorry, I have to set this on, to go more from the bass actually. Would you like to try maybe for 2 lines, basso continuo version? Do you think it's possible? Okay, if not, no worries, we always have a solution. So, I will do it.
Okay.
And you play the Allemande as it is.
Okay.
Yeah? So, let's go. With me. Wiederholung, repetition. We're a bit faster, you don't have to couple, there are things to adapt. But I think if you've got actually this coming from the bass, also the inequality will be easier to handle. I always say, actually you shouldn't want to play inegal, you know the thing. Yeah? So it's a kind of, I would even say in this context, it's a kind of faiblesse, you know, of debilitas. And that's why we play inegal. What I would suggest to you also, and this is very complicated in this kind of writing by Couperin, which is very dense in a way that we always have to think that we have to listen to the bass and to make it speak because it's leading the whole thing. So actually it would be nice, it's already written, but actually it's the same thing everywhere. Should we try again, so you alone, and really focus on the bass line and try to articulate it more. We could even, let's do the beginning one last time. And then we're going to be. Two pointers. Move on. But these kind of things, you know, you're actually confirming something here, I think. You say it one time, and then you've got in the bass, with the pincée. So I would probably, because, I think we can hear, these kind of little things make a difference, I think. And then relax, listen, because you've already said something, a lot of things, right? And then something else, beginning high this time, because the A part was beginning quite dark in the low register. Let's do just the cadence from there on and move into B. Much better, I think, from the bass leading. I think what I haven't played it, but let's do this. Not to disturb your height. And it's good for the back. It's not important anymore here, in a way, because you want to stress actually the middle voice. But I think if you just, because often when we've got this kind of polyphony in the same hand, we turn actually to drücken more on the voice we want to highlight. And it's not always productive, actually. So it's better actually to listen, of course, but to relax the other voice. Well, I find. It's very personal. And you can, of course, stagger a bit, but nothing. Right? A bit before. If you want. But maybe also it's better. But you've got ya ta da da mi bemol major and ti da da E flat major. But then you've got the B flat minor. I mean, if you look in Charpentier, it's the worst of all. So it can't be with the same touch. And one thing that could help you also, because I just notice it more now, you could make maybe more difference in the bass between good and bad notes. When you've got the eighth notes, because they beautifully played, articulated as well, much better, but they could be more differentiated. The same thing again. Bravo! Wonderful, wonderful, super. Does it make a difference? Okay, you have to say. And one thing too, because I think this time in Europe, not only in France, but in Europe, and I think Johannes would agree with me, is really total spannend, was die Musiktheorie angeht. Also ich meine, niemand ist hat verstanden, also die Theorie, also die Kampfen, also zwischeneinander, so Pamphleten, alles Mögliche. Und es gibt natürlich Rameau, in Frankreich schon, aber ziemlich spät, also ich meine so ziemlich well in the 18th century, the hexachord theory was still taught in France. So I think also what comes from it was also probably to be heard in the way people play. So of course if you choose to play in F minor, I mean it's Weich of. It's morbidezza maybe. But then if you look, you've got a lot of flats, and then you land on an E, which is a hard note. And then this is also confirmed afterwards. So I think this could have more drive. This feeling, I think. Maybe let's get a try. Just, it's something to think of. I might be completely wrong, but where you want. Bravo. Something else. And this is beautiful. I think this jump is not harmless. And I think we have to, take advantage of the, breathing sign he wrote there. Mm-hmm. Because it's not just to breathe, it's also to take actually
I wouldn't say even the energy, but you know, the quality of speaking of the high B flat. Sol, do, maybe a bit more tender, but lazy, you do the right letter. Okay, do we have some time for ceremony or Schluss? Okay, dann
Vielen Dank, man könnte jetzt noch ewig weitermachen, das macht mir Freude. Ich bedanke mich nochmals bei den beiden Studentinnen. Das waren nochmal, dass Sie den Namen hören, Juna Zilberberg und Anastasia Egorenko-Bar. Und vor allem herzlichen Dank an Jean-Christophe. Und Sie sind jetzt frei bis 14 Uhr für die Mittagspause. Dann geht es weiter mit dem Cembalo-Bau. Guten Appetit.